All right, we are live. I'm Michelangelo Signorelli, and I am with Joe Sudbay. We're both at SiriusXM. I, of course, host the Michelangelo Signorelli Show. Joe hosts State of the States. A lot of you know me from the Signorelli Report. My Substack. Today, we're doing a collaboration with our great friends at Lincoln Square. So we're on Lincoln Square, and I'm really excited to be doing this. It's a lot of fun. Joe, I'm so glad you're with me doing this today.
Yeah, this will be fun, and I need it. I actually need it a lot, Mike. It's been a rough couple days, and I think we all
It's
need it.
been just a bomb dropped, I think, on all of us last week between the Supreme Court's Voting Rights Act decision and then coming right after that, the Virginia Supreme Court just throwing out the ballot measure after people voted to redistrict to battle Texas and what Republicans are doing. And I want to talk about how it all played out because last week that decision, which of course came the week before, it had reverberations with Tennessee just in turmoil, where Republicans voted to get rid of the one Democratic seat, the one seat in the state that is majority black, that district in Shelby County, Memphis, and they were just taking away, disenfranchising those voters, taking away that representation of people in Memphis, and people weren't having it. Democrats were really standing up. The black community in full force, led by the black legislators, Justin J. Pearson, Justin Jones, a part of the Tennessee Three, of course, with Gloria Johnson. They were protesting. They were standing up. People were outside the courthouse, inside the courthouse. And I think we need to see them as a real inspiration in the middle of this, as people were so demoralized, as you were just talking about how bad it's been. They really have been fighting. Here was Justin J. Pearson talking about what this really is.
Yesterday in the state of Tennessee was a political lynching. It is very much an era of retribution that we are entering into in the United States of America across the South, where 12 to 20 United States House seats that are black majority are at risk of being taken away, and nearly 200 seats for state House members and state Senate members are likely to be taken away by the rise of white supremacy and its attempt to solidify its power on behalf of the biggest white supremacist in the United States of America, which is the President of the United States. I was expelled, and my other black colleague was expelled.
That was him, of course, on MS Now. I mean, he's absolutely right. It is Jim Crow 2.0. It's taking us back to the Confederacy.
It really has. And, I think it's taken people, this has been a slow roll. I mean, John Roberts has wanted this for 40 years, and he has maneuvered this along with his colleagues, his Republican colleagues on the Supreme Court. This is exactly what they do. They're basically, for all intents and purposes, ending the Voting Rights Act. And it's been a goal, and it's been exacerbated by Trump and his minions working it from a legislative angle like they did in Texas. And what the goal is first of all, to disenfranchise voters, particularly black voters, but it's also very much Trump's goal to protect himself from any kind of accountability and consequences. That's what he thinks about. Trump thinks short term. Roberts and the Republican allies he has around the country, and they are allies. Last week, he was whining that people were seeing them as too political. While he was saying that, Mike, Megyn Kelly was interviewing Justice Gorsuch. You can't get much more right-wing and Republican than Megyn Kelly. He had just been on Fox News. They are showing us who they are in so many different ways. And we must believe them. And I think, you've talked a lot about it on your show. We've talked about it in progressive circles for a long time. So many of us have been warning about this. And you kind of got this sense that a lot of people were thinking, oh, here they go again. I feel like last week was such a wake-up call, too late, maybe, hopefully not, for many people around the country to realize, holy shit, they really mean this. And they do mean it. They do mean it. They literally, the hoods were off. I mean, they put their hoods on, their white pointy hoods on, then they took them off because they're not even embarrassed about who they are, being who they are anymore. And I think we need to be prepared to fight in ways we've never fought before. Or having
Absolutely.
for 50,
And
60
you know,
years.
yeah, we've complained a lot about Democrats not grasping the gravity of what's happening, certainly from the beginning of Trump's term. I think that has changed a lot. I think we have pushed them to really stand up very firmly. I think just that we had California immediately redistricting and then Virginia as well. As we've seen them talking about now, even further redistricting, fighting fire with fire. Also, in Virginia, after that really horrendous ruling, I mean, you had a vote of the people. You had a vote that had people out knocking doors and working hard and doing what democracy is all about, spending millions of dollars as well. And that Supreme Court reviewed this ballot measure before it went to the ballot and allowed it to still go on the ballot. Then, when it turned out that Democrats got it passed, that the districts were going to be redistricted, they didn't seem to like it. I mean, in the beginning of their decision, they talk about how they don't really like partisan redistricting. Well, that's not your job in this ruling to tell us what you think about that, nor is it your job to tell us, as they did, about how close it was. It wasn't really that close. It was 4 points. But you could see their distaste. And then by a 4-3 decision, they rule on a technicality and throw it out, saying that early voting started before the legislators could vote and it didn't play with the way the Constitution worked. And the dissent said, no, that's absolutely not true. This is a reworking of what the idea of election day is, or election is. Bottom line is, they threw it out, and Democrats have really vowed to use every tool they can to overturn that vote. I mean, the Attorney General is going to the Supreme Court. I don't know how that's going to go. But there's also been a discussion about actually retiring the entire Virginia Supreme Court. And I saw this written on the down ballot by somebody you've had on your program quite a bit, Quinn, right? He's somebody who you've talked to on State of the States a lot, and it was like, wow, what a strategy! Actually, lowering the retirement age of Supreme Court justices to the age just below the youngest justice, getting rid of the whole Supreme Court. Now, it sounds radical, and then replacing them and having this heard again. It sounds radical, but it's something Republicans would do. And I was kind of shocked when I read it. And then I actually saw that Hakeem Jeffries was raising this in a meeting among Democrats as part of a plan. Now, do I think they're really going to go through with it? I don't know. But the fact that they're even talking about it, I think they're on the right track.
Oh, this Quinn Yergain, he's a professor of law of democracy at Michigan State. He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Understands state courts so well. And the down ballot, David Neer and his colleagues, and Quinn's a contributor there. I'm actually on their Discord channel, and on election night, it's really fun.
People should go there. Great. The down ballot right on Substack.
Yeah,
I think it's the-downballot, right.com.
Yeah, it's an essential read. So they published this Friday evening, and it was like one of the things that just gave me some joy. And Quinn said, the legislature has the ability to lower the age, lower it to 54. And that would, all the Supreme Court justices would be retired. He and David Neer did a Substack live on Saturday evening as well. And I watched it, I mean, because I'm a dork, right? And it's Saturday, and this is like what we live for. And it was really a great conversation. And, David said, like, a lot of people think this is extreme. And he said, well, maybe it is, but look what we're seeing on the other side. And also, it's a starting point. Maybe they only come back and say, well, you know what, we're going to just lower the age a little bit. But if you started there, if you said, let's do 70 or 65, then you'd have to negotiate from there. He said, let's do maximum. Let's go the max. And maybe they'll negotiate further up, but let's get this conversation going. And so I thought it was great, right? And then it was in the New York Times that it was being considered. And you just mentioned Minority Leader Jeffries is saying it. This is the kind of thing we need. And look, what would Republicans do if the situation were reversed? They do this in a heartbeat and think nothing of it.
Right. We know they're doing it in Florida. They're ignoring the Constitution in Florida. Florida Constitution says this kind of redistricting they're doing right now can't be done. They're saying we're going to do it, and we're going to, hope that the justices we put on the court are just going to undo whatever that is.
DeSantis' staff went to the Senate committee and said, ignore the Constitution of Florida. Ignore what I think it was 63% of the voters of Florida passed in 2010. Ignore it. We've ignored it before. Let's just keep ignoring the Constitution. So that's how Republicans handle things. They're ignoring the will of their voters, just like these justices in Virginia have ignored the will of the voters.
Right. And this is about, and that's the difference, right? Democrats actually respecting the will of the voters. Right. We haven't had a ruling like this where you actually, after the fact, throw out an election in decades. It's angering people. It's angering people across the country. Those images coming out of Tennessee are angering people. Alabama, South Carolina, there are protests all over the South. And I really think that it is just another thing angering and energizing people, as if we haven't seen enough already with the horrendous Trump agenda and with everything with tariffs and inflation and the war in Iran and, of course, mass deportations and everything else. And I look at it and I know there have been a lot of stories about, hey, now Democrats, they may have previously, leveled the playing field on the redistricting, but now it doesn't look so good. But I'm not sure about that. I think this wave is really big. And yes, these are definitely, some obstacles, but this wave is bigger than what these Republicans can do, at least this year.
Yeah, we can't overlook that. I think Elliot Morris writes the Substack called Strength in Numbers. Brilliant. He said Democrats need to win, I think, the generic by about 4 points to take back the House. It's going to be hard, no doubt about it. But look, last week was a rough week in many ways. And remember, on last Tuesday, a number of Indiana state senators, Republican state senators, lost because they would not do gerrymandering in Indiana, and Donald Trump would not have that, so he helped defeat them. That same night, so that was intra-GOP, that was GOP primaries. That same night, that same day, in Michigan, Senate District 35, Saginaw, a couple of counties around Saginaw, Shedrick Green overperformed Kamala Harris by 19 points. He won by 20 points in a competitive district and kept control of the state Senate for Democrats. We cannot forget how many of those kind of races we've seen across the country, the overperformance. Even when Democrats didn't win, we saw a 25-point overperformance in Georgia, 14. In Tennessee, we saw Afton Bain overperform by 13 points in that state. In Florida, there have been massive overperformances at the congressional level and the state legislative level. Some of them have won, some of them haven't. Iowa's a good example too. So that is going to continue because the American voters understand, many American voters and Democrats understand the assignment, and they understand how important it is to fight for our democracy. And they understand what Donald Trump and Republicans are doing to them. They're certainly trying to take away our right to voters' rights, no doubt about it. They've taken away abortion rights. He launched a war in Iran that is for no reason, no one knows why, and gas prices are out of control. This immigration, this mass deportation immigration horror that he's launched on the country has impacted communities across the country. It just keeps continuing. There's nothing good that has come out of this Trump administration or from Republicans. The only thing that he cares about, the thing he cares most about, isn't any of us. He cares about his goddamn ballrooms. That's it. That's it,
Yeah.
Mark.
Yes. And, you just talked about some of the state races. I always call you, or lately I've been calling you the canary in the coal mine because you cover these state races and you cover them very intimately and in a detailed way on State of the States. You're seeing what's happening in the states and you've seen these overperformances. This is going back to the very beginning of Trump's administration. These overperformances that, again, even in this climate, what we just saw the Supreme Court do, what we just saw the Virginia Supreme Court do, even in that, these overperformances are so big. Republicans have a whole bunch of seats that they are not going to be able to defend, even with what they're doing here. And you just mentioned the ballroom, of course. They just can't seem to stop themselves from putting more weight on what they are trying to do here in trying to keep the House, because now they have actually put the ballroom $1 billion, right, for the ballroom into this reconciliation bill to fund ICE, like two things that are like so unpopular that are just more things that they have to now contend with as we head into the midterms. And I mean, it's Trump and his own voters. It's his own voters who see these things as unpopular as well. If you look at the focus groups of Trump supporters, particularly the ballroom, they're furious about these projects. The reflecting pool, the ballroom, the Kennedy Center, putting his name on everything, putting his name on the money. I mean, I guess there's a certain MAGA base that, that we just saw a bunch of evangelicals erect a gold statue to him in Florida, right? There's a bunch of them that are, into this deifying of him. But a lot of people who voted for Trump are really angry about all this stuff because they didn't get what they were supposed to get, because inflation is still high. He's driving it up, because the war is causing the gas prices to go up. And then just seeing this ballroom, I think it's really enraging people. And ICE, I mean, people really started out believing he was just going to round up criminals. And we eventually saw people killed in the street who were protesting, American citizens. That has really irked a lot of people, even among those who voted for Trump.
Yeah, well, just remember, last year in the big ugly bill, a lot of the focus was on Medicaid, but ICE and CBP, DHS got $170 billion to do just what they've been doing, invoking terror in American communities, big cities, suburban areas, rural communities. This vote right now, and this is because, remember, Democrats had a strategy to isolate CBP and ICE, and they said, we're not going to fund the Department of Homeland Security. We want a separate conversation about ICE. We want some restrictions put on them. I mean, I would like to abolish the whole thing, but, we'll take what we could get right now, right? Well, DHS was shut down for quite a while. Republicans finally caved, funded everything except for ICE and CBP. What they've done is it's called reconciliation. So that means they only need 51 votes in the Senate and a simple majority, obviously, in the House. But then they added the $1 billion for the ballroom. Like you said, it's like some of the most toxic things they can do. And they're forcing everyone to vote on it. This week in the Senate, or this week or early next week, Democrats will have an opportunity to do what's called vote-a-rama, offer a bunch of amendments, then it'll go over to the House. You have Republicans in very competitive districts who are going to have to vote on this because you know what? Donald Trump wants it. And that's all that matters. Like they all know. John Thune and Mike Johnson know this is treacherous, but it doesn't matter. Where are they going to take it out? And
and I mean, now they're more scared than ever after Indiana. I mean,
right.
What did he accomplish? They were crowing. I saw the White House saying this is going to be their strategy into the election. Do what they did in Indiana. What they did in Indiana was destroy Republicans. They beat Republicans who voted with the MAGA agenda 99.9% of the time. But because they voted against redistricting, they brought in even more extreme people. now at least one of those seats is going to be competitive with the Democrat in the general election. So it really is not a strategy of any kind. Now, I want to let everybody know I'm Michelangelo Signorelli, and I'm here with Joe Sudbay. Of course, I host my show on Sirius XM, and Joe is on State of the States on Sirius XM. And a lot of you are probably coming in from my Substack, the Signorelli Report. A lot of you are here on Lincoln Square as well. We're doing a great collaboration here with Lincoln Square, which is doing just phenomenal work, and I so appreciate what they do. Joe, yeah, this strategy that they have to use what happened in Indiana as the way forward, and meanwhile they are dealing with so many other issues, the war and everything else. How does this work for them?
Well, I think it remains to be seen. So, I saw there was reporters asked Susan Collins about the ballroom, and she didn't quite have an answer. Any Republican who's in the Senate is going to have to answer for this. Any Republican who's running, and then when it goes to the House, Mike Johnson doesn't have any wiggle room. I think right now he has 218 members. I think Democrats around 212. There was another death. So he doesn't have any wiggle room, right? So if you're Mike Lawler running in suburban New York, District 17,
Kamala Harris won that seat.
You're going to have to vote for this. You don't have any choice. Representative Salazar down in Florida, she's making this great show of, I'm so supportive of immigrants. I'm worried about our dreamers. Okay, guess what? Add an amendment, offer an amendment to your bill to say you want to protect them. She won't, because she can't, because they won't let her. So she's going to have to vote. She's out there telling everyone, I've got this bill that's going to help immigrants. Okay, well, tell Mike Johnson you need it or you won't give him his vote. None of them will use the power they have. And I think that's really important. Watch how they all play along. You'll see some Lawler's the classic example. We've talked about him before. He's always on CNN or MSNBC being so plaintive, and he's so worried, and he's this and he's this. Look at how he votes. They always vote with Trump. The only one who doesn't is Tom Massey, and a couple voted against Trump on the discharge petition for the Epstein files. But they stick with Trump because of what happened. And that's their Indiana strategy. Okay, bring them along. Make them all vote for the ballroom. Make them vote to give $70 billion more to ICE. The thing that they could take a few of those alleged moderates, because there are no moderates in the House, could put up a stink and change it, and none of them will, because their fealty to Trump is more important than anything.
And, even Trump on immigration just can't seem to, pull back. Like, we know he got nervous after what happened in Minneapolis. There have been reports that they, really obviously we saw what happened with the switching up and putting Tom Homan, and that he sees it as a liability. There was an article in The Atlantic that published today about Stephen Miller and how he's supposedly been isolated a bit. Trump worried about how his brand of toxic, racist, white supremacist politics, if that's what you want to call it, just flat out racism, affects the election, and that he's kind of been pushed back. We know, though, that anti-immigration, radicals who are pushing for mass deportation, they've been complaining to the administration as well. So Trump is getting that pushback. And even if Trump kind of distances from Miller, for a little bit, it's in Trump's DNA, this racism that he wants to promote in this country, and the way he wants to just make this country more white. It's in his entire history, right? Going way back to his work in New York as a landlord and a builder, right? So it's something that he's never going to quit. Stephen Miller's like an addiction for him. He understands he's bad for him politically, but it makes Trump really feel high embracing Miller and that agenda, right? He can never quit him. And you were pointing to some of that in the story in the Atlantic.
Yeah. So in the article, it said several people we spoke with said that it's just a matter of time before Miller is able to reassert himself with new initiatives. He's like, Stephen Miller's like one of those characters in a horror movie that, one of those murders that you think is, you think they've taken care of and they keep coming back to life. He's been doing this for a long time. Now, a lot of people hate Stephen Miller inside and outside the administration because he is as diabolical and evil as he appears. But this idea that somehow they've softened things up. Last week, there was a conference in Arizona, and Tom Homan was there and had said, talking about mass deportation, you ain't seen shit yet. That's his exact quote. Right. They're coming. They're going to come.
And the former ICE guy, Lyons, right? Todd Lyons.
Lyons and Scott from CBP. They were sitting up there saying they were like giddy because they know it's coming. They tried to calm things down a little bit after they murdered people on the streets of Minneapolis. And but they're coming. This is the thing that drives Trump.
They're building concentration camps all across the country. They've got to fill them up. They're going to do something with them.
Absolutely. And the concentration camps have found a lot of backlash, even from some Republicans, because it's kind of a bad thing to have a concentration camp in your community. And we call them concentration camps. I do because Andrea Pitzer, who's a scholar, wrote a book on concentration camps. She defines them and she's explained, right? She's brilliant. You've talked to her. I know she's been on Sirius XM a lot, Sirius XM Progress. But this is a tenet of their his presidency. He's going to keep doing it. And, you're seeing a lot more articles of people saying, well, we didn't think he was going to do it. Well, he told you he was going to do it. They had those signs, mass deportation now. What I think happened with a lot of Republicans, a lot of Republican farmers, I saw an article from Washington, a column from Washington, where a lot of farmers in Washington were like, well, we're Republicans, but we didn't think this would happen. Home builders down in Texas who voted for Trump, they're Republicans. We voted for him. We didn't think they were happy. They were just fine with the racist anti-immigrant rhetoric. But now that rhetoric has been turned into reality, and it's having a detrimental effect on our economy, on communities, on families, and just on the psyche of the nation. And so many people know someone who's been deported or is in fear of deportation. It's sickened the country. Trump has just sickened this country in so many ways.
And it's affected his own supporters.
Yes.
And to your point, it's very hard to believe that people didn't see or hear the things he was saying and what the people in the campaign were saying, right, during the election. The numbers of people they were going to deport, there weren't that many criminals, right? I mean, he even said, right, we might have to take mothers away from their children. They chose to hear what they wanted to hear because they really believed the bullshit about he was going to bring inflation down. He was going to make sure prices were going to be great. He was going to give them all this stuff. They were going to get money after Doge, like where are the Doge checks, right? I mean, they were going to get all this stuff. And so they decided not to hear it. And what happened, and I think it's debatable what would have happened if inflation did come down, if things did get better economically, and the mass deportations were going on. How many of those people would have just been okay with it, right, and looked the other way? But what happened was they didn't get what they wanted, right? And then they were stuck with owning this brutality, right, in front of their faces while they got nothing, while he's building a ballroom, while he is making billions in crypto and all kinds of other corrupt stuff, while he's suing our own government, the IRS, right, for money. I mean, that to me is the double whammy here. Who knows how they would have been if they got something out of it, but they didn't get anything out of it, and they're seeing this, and it really feels icky.
It does. It feels gross. And I know it's easy to after the past week to get demoralized and to think, we're in dire straits, and we are in dire straits. We're in very dire straits. This nation is in very dire straits. Trump has no sense of leadership. He's created these crises. He has no idea how to get out of them, starting with the war and everything else. But Mike, around the country, we mentioned the special elections. There has been amazing recruitment. And I always like to plug this because I always feel like we have to have something to hold on to, right? We'll see what happens with Virginia in the backlash to Virginia and whether Quinn Yeargain's proposal gets some legs. But across the country, Democrats have recruited an amazing amount of state legislative candidates. And I think that this is really important. And a lot of the recruitment has happened because of the very issues we're talking about.
Right.
I think a state like Texas, I just spoke with Representative Christina Morales, who's the chair of the House Democratic Campaign Committee. They have 150 candidates running in 150 seats. And she said many of them are teachers who came forward because of the vouchers program that was pushed by billionaires. People are furious about what's happening with immigration. People are furious about what's happening with the inflation in the economy and gas prices. And that's happened in states like South Carolina, in Michigan, in Maine, in Ohio. The recruitment has been off the charts because I really feel like once you get outside of the DC kind of bubble, voters understand the assignment. And Democrats understand the assignment at the local level. And sometimes we get caught up in, you can get caught up in the fights that are happening. The centrists are mad at the progressives or something like that. Out in the rest of the country, that shit doesn't matter. People understand we are in a very dangerous place. And
Yes.
that's what so I think that's important. I just wanted to make sure we said that too.
Absolutely. And, you hear all of this stuff from a lot of the corporate media. Democrats, the Republicans are doing bad, but Democrats are doing worse. People don't like the Democratic Party and blah, blah, blah. And, they never break it down. Yeah, a lot of Democrats are unhappy with the Democratic leadership, but Democrats really, really like their candidates. And they've really loved their candidates in all of these elections that we saw, from Mamdani to Spanberger to Mikey Sherrill to all of the special elections all across the country that you're talking about, because they're hitting on affordability, because they're hitting on taking on Trump, because they're hitting on protecting democracy, because they're fighting back really hard. They love their candidates. These people didn't win because people were angry at Trump. They won because these people were standing up and standing for something and fearless. And I think that's very important. And that gets me back to when you're talking about people being demoralized, we need to look to them. We also need to look to Tennessee and the people who are out on the front lines, those Black legislators who were standing up and speaking out, people like Justin J. Pearson and so many more, and in Alabama, in South Carolina, whatever, and the Black community that has been through this for hundreds of years, right? And that has fought and resisted and won rights and then seen them taken away, and realizing that this is a long haul. It's something I always try to talk about with regard to LGBTQ rights and women's rights and so many other issues, right? You can never rest. You can never rest. And you don't have the luxury to be demoralized, okay? You have to stand up and fight, lick your wounds, take a break, but stand up and fight. And I'm feeling that now, even after last week. I'm feeling like, and I'm looking to people like those Black protesters in those southern states who are like, we don't have the privilege to sit on the sidelines. So let's hold them up too.
Let's hold them up and let's support them and follow their lead and do the work that we need to do too. The rest of us have to do. And in your own community, maybe that's supporting a state legislative candidate. Maybe it's supporting a congressional candidate. Maybe it's whatever it is. We have to do whatever you do and do more. And I know, people say, oh yeah, Democrats just say vote harder. And I've seen so many people say this, and I'm just going to paraphrase. If they didn't care so much about the power of our vote, they wouldn't work so hard to prevent people from voting.
Right.
And I
Very,
think
very-
that's a lesson we all have to take. And, and I'm not just saying vote harder is the only thing. We need more leadership from our electeds in DC and around the country. It's going to be a challenge for Spanberger to see how Governor Spanberger, to see how she responds to this. But this Supreme Court ruling was such an affront to the voters of her state, who a healthy majority, chose to change the boundaries for the congressional seats. I think she owes it to her voters, and I think the House of Delegates and the state Senate do as well, to defend the integrity of what happened on that election, and that their Supreme Court has tried to take away their vote.
Joe, this has been such a great conversation. As you said at the beginning, you needed it. I needed it too. I feel better. I hope everybody else does. Let's just keep the pressure up, keep doing it. I want to thank you for coming on. Joe Sudbay, host of State of the States on SiriusXM Progress. I'm Michelangelo Signorelli, and of course, the Signorelli Report is my Substack. I host a show as well on SiriusXM. I want to thank everybody at Lincoln Square for having us in this collaboration. It's so exciting, and thanks to the team. Thanks to Sean Bertolo, who's doing great work, and of course,
we love Sean.
Absolutely, Susan Demas, the executive editor, who I've had on my program a lot as well. Thanks to everybody, and thanks to everybody who watched today. Thank you for being with us.